Hello, everybody. So thank you for coming back to my channel. This is George Callahan announcing joyous tidings that Peter Mandelson, formerly Lord Mandelson, has been taken into custody to help the police with their inquiries. They arrested him on suspicion of misconduct in public office. It's utterly blatant that he grossly misconducted himself in public office, not whilst he was ambassador to the United States, a position for which he resigned only about a month ago, but looking back to the Blair Brown years, 1997 to 2010, the years of the Labour government, and he's in the cabinet for much of that time. Minister without portfolio, then Secretary of State for Trade. He resigned from that in disgrace over not declaring a conflict of interest, that he was a debtor of someone his department was investigating, Geoffrey Robinson, the Paymaster General, who'd lent him £383,000 in 1996. In modern values, that's at least £800,000. And then resigning again when he tried to intervene on the Hinduja brothers getting a British citizenship because they were donating to the Millennium Dome, and the dome was Mandelson's baby, and so on. But that's all petty compared to what we know now from the Epstein files. He was in very close contact with Epstein. Okay, he's allowed to have friends, correspond, but he was deliberately leaking confidential government documents that were market sensitive about government policy. He was going to spend more on this and less on that, and was going to plan to bail out the Royal Bank of Scotland and so forth when Gordon Brown was going to resign. And Epstein wrote to him saying, are you awake? And Mandelson emails back, I'm in cabinet right now. He was sitting in the cabinet room with 20 or so other government ministers, and instead of doing his level best, as very well paid to do, to help Britain get the best possible policies, no, he was wasting his time helping this guy. And this was after Epstein was sent to prison for a sex crime against a minor, against a 15-year-old in Florida. And Mandelson described the guy as his best pal, said this would never happen in Britain, you wouldn't go to prison. What it definitely would have done, because what Epstein had done would have been illegal in the United Kingdom, and so on. Yeah, so always getting money out of him. Jeffrey Epstein paid for Mandelson's then boyfriend £10,000 to do an osteopathy course. Mandelson later married that man, a Brazilian chap, and Jeffrey Epstein was paying £4,000 a month into Mandelson's husband's account. This was bribery. He wasn't paying Mandelson directly. Let's make it a tiny bit subtle by paying your lover, and so on. So he was arrested outside his house by non-uniformed officers, taken to a police station. He'll be questioned there. No doubt he'll be released on police bail after a few hours. I mean, he might be charged by that. Remember, charge and release within 24 hours. Now, they can be held for longer, but the police have to apply to a more senior officer to approve that. At some level, they have to apply to a magistrate, which is a low-level judge. But that's usually in very complicated terrorist cases. So he won't be allowed to leave the country for a while without permission. Then if his passport will be taken or cancelled or whatever, but just tell you can't leave the country because you might be a flight risk. We want to investigate you further, might want to charge you, blah, blah, blah. Now, okay, they could drop charges and say you're free to come and go as you want. But again, you could see this one coming. Remember, I predicted it. So perhaps Mandelson was stupid not to get out of the country. You can buy citizenship. He's a very wealthy man. He's got a net worth of about £10 million. And he's always sucking up to the super rich. He was the European Trade Commissioner in the mid-noughties, c'est un grand honneur. I can see him now with his terrible accent in French saying that because, okay. But then he kept cutting the duty on aluminium, which really helped his pal Oleg Deripaska, made Deripaska about an extra 500 million euros in 1 year. And Lord Mandelson was his guest on his super yacht a few times. So I remember one woman said that people who are not powerful are invisible to him. Or another journalist saying, I was speaking at a party one time and I could see his eyes scanning the room behind me. Was there anyone more important to speak to? So he's also eligious and he'll just suck up to whoever's wealthy. So there are a number of elements of misconduct in public office. The person has to be public office. So as a cabinet minister, he definitely was one. And the next up, that he misconducted himself willfully by the non-feasance of one of his duties or doing something like unethical whilst in public office. And obviously leaking confidential government documents is definitely that. These were market moving, and especially some of the credit crunches of 2008 and so on, when Britain was staring economic meltdown in the face. Okay. and it has to be something which abuses the public trust. Well, this would definitely make the public feel there's been a breach of trust. You had a duty of confidentiality, of fidelity to the public weal. You were not serving the common weal, you're saving your chum, Jeffrey Epstein, and told him how to mildly threaten the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, who since RIP, about this proposed tax on bankers' bonuses. And in Alistair Darling's autobiography, he said, he couldn't believe it. There was also a conspiracy. What the hell is going on? All these bankers phoning up, taking the same line. So they've been coached by Peter Mandelson what to say and stuff like that. So it has to be the case that he'd acted without reasonable excuse or justification. Well, there's no excuse for this behavior whatsoever. It's not remotely justifiable. I mean, so being friends with Jeffrey Epstein, even after Epstein was found guilty of that crime, that's not illegal in itself. It's the other stuff, this financial skullduggery. Now, whether he did it for these douceurs or not is neither here nor there. That doesn't, even if you got not a penny out of it, it still makes it a crime. So the 72-year-old Peter Mandelson was led away. They're searching his house. He's got a property in Wiltshire, which is in Western England, and he's got a house in North London near Regent's Park, now where he formerly lived there in the Notting Hill area. Now, I don't know whether his husband has come into this. So, yeah, he is the Prince of Darkness. He was often loathed as being just a scumbag within the Labour Party. He was a very, very close friend of Tony Blair, helped him come to office. Gordon Brown didn't like him, but Mandelson, whatever you say about him, he's not thick. He doesn't have the excuse of stupidity. When John Smith, the leader of the Labour Party, and therefore Her Majesty's most loyal opposition, died of a heart attack in 1994, the question was who would be the next Labour leader. And Mandelson correctly recognised that Tony Blair would appeal to floating voters much more than the saturnine and surly Gordon Brown. So he persuaded Gordon Brown not to put his hat in the ring for the leadership, and Tony Blair would go for it and indeed won it, and the prime ministership, and Gordon Brown would get to be Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he served for 10 years, the longest serving Chancellor of the Exchequer ever. If you're not from the United Kingdom, you may know what that means. That means what any other country called finance minister. One of the few things to be said in favour of Blair is allowing continuity, allowing someone to be in a certain important office for a long time. Like Education Secretary of the previous Conservative government, they changed on average every 18 months. Likewise, Health Secretary. So nobody knows what's happening. Someone just gets his or her feet under the desk, is starting to understand the role, and then he or she has moved on. So these pointless reshuffles. So yeah, Mandelson, I reckon, will be charged within the next few weeks. The trial won't take place for about a year. The maximum sentence is up to 10 years. He can plead not guilty, reduce it by a third. So it gets something like 7 years, released in half that time. Then we have be a fine. I hope his ill-gotten lucre will be disgorged. So he's a vile person, and they're the most unmentionable crimes he's committed. He's absolutely horrific. What he has done would make Jeffrey Epstein seem like an angel by comparison. So Mandelson is evil, evil, evil. There are crimes that people won't even mention that he's committed, but that's true of almost every Labour politician. Thanks for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon. Donate PayPal, georgecannon79@gmail.com. Goodbye.